Very much, Maven. I mean, you said it yourself there. The sweep came through, the swoop, if you want to say that. I mean, you heard Phil say, yeah, it wasn't really that easy, or they didn't make it look that. I mean, it was. They made that look simple, Chance.
It was, yeah. I mean, the hard point, I think, could have gone either way. Like, Splyce played it incredibly well, and I think letting that slip through the pick and bans is not a problem, because they've been good on that map, even with Felony. They showed a lot of potential. Getting Jerd back, like, they can do it. If they ran it back, I think you'd have a close map again. That S&D, though, that was awful. That was very difficult to watch. But luckily, we have a couple minutes before we have to talk about that, so we're good.
Yeah, we can start with map 1. Of course, hardpoint on Arden Forest. Joe, LG, I mean, they started off strong. Octane, you pretty much get that Octane performance, right? Pretty much sitting at double positive the whole time. The big thing to note, though, is just the sheer amount of hill time he's able to get as well.
Yeah, I think the big thing is you can see the emphasis of each team on what hill they really want to control. For Luminosity, it was Cave. They would even go for that scrap time. For Splyce, they really focused on that Ruins. You heard the guys. That's where they really got a lot of their time. And then it just came down to that bunker hill. LG, the first time around, well, they were able to get it. That's why they had surmounted this lead. But then Splyce, they were able to bring this back, because when you can combine Ruins and that bunker hill, you're able to get a huge chunk of time. But then Luminosity, they really turned it around. And as you said, Octane had himself quite a game one. Yeah, and like Splyce found themselves down early, but they were down by about 60 points, and they get set up on bunker hill the second time around, and they get a full 60. So the emphasis on bunker would have been huge. But then the third time around, it was contention back and forth. And I think, well, it was a bit at the start of that hill, but Splyce, they get wiped out a clean 4 down. And I don't know if they just got a little bit too over aggressive on the hill trying to force LG out, but if they just even contest for a little bit longer, there would have been potential for that game to go at least past the next hill. Of course, the problem was for them as well. Even on road, LG just did a fantastic job. I think it was John that kept flanking all the way through Ruins, and he did it on 2 separate occasions, kind of ran the other team over. But it's worth pointing out, again, Octane puts up just ridiculous numbers, including the time in the hill. And I think it's really just him and Methods that like can kind of pull off that play style with the team. But like, it's incredibly difficult to emulate, right? Like, you don't want to learn from LG necessarily, because like, are you really going to be able to do it like Octane does, sort of thing? So I still think TK is the gold standard on how to play, but like what LG does is phenomenal. Yeah, and again, you saw on that scoreboard, I mean, you could tell LG wanted to control Cave, Splyce, they wanted to control Ruins, but right away, going into this search and destroy, John opening up the game with a very fast start. But Luminosity, they just look so comfortable on this map, on both their offenses and their defenses. That Octane Slack duo at the B bomb site, just so difficult to break. They do a great job working together. They show so many different things on their offense, but overall, it was just clean LG.
Obviously, we talked a lot about, you know, how TK's stats are on Arden Forest Search and Destroy. First of all, I'd love to see TK LG on Arden Forest Search. That'd be a very spicy matchup. But LG is now 11-2 on Forest Search and Destroy at major event lands. This is the thing that blows my mind, though. It has now passed through their veto process 100% of the time, and they're 5-0 at it here in Stage 1. That it has to change. You have to ban this map now.
This is what I was telling you. Like, teams in Division B just aren't vetoing maps.
You have to ban that.
Like Division A, they were making, yeah, they might have been a little bit uncomfortable, but they were trying to switch things up. Like, if you go back through Luminosity series, they're playing Arden Forest Search and Destroy every single time. They're playing London Docks or Arden Forest Hardpoint. They're playing Arden Forest ETF, which we're going to go to. Like, nobody's trying to make Luminosity feel uncomfortable whatsoever.
I will say, though, like, I think Splyce letting that through, I would have been on the same page, or at least at the start. Tommy has looked fantastic with the sniper on that map. Like, they showed a lot of potential, and they get Jerd back, but I think it was like the first rounds, we saw Tommy getting pelted with stuns, and they made him irrelevant. So, yeah, I think from now on, with the exception of maybe TK, we should literally never see LG play Force S&D again.
I would love to see a TK LG.
That would be nice.
I mean, that would be, whew, that'd be a clash of the Titans right there on that map specifically. But we digress. Obviously, map 3, Arden Forest, CTF, LG with the 2-0 lead in that first half. They look good. They get some streaks there as well. And I mean, it was comfortable, Joe. It was comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, that's just it. Right from the start, they get that 2-0 lead. They don't lose it, right? They do such a good job attacking that bridge side. They know when they force those players to spawn out cabin. John, though, 28 kills, 1.75, and has a cap. He really had a great game.
Yeah, great game indeed. And for Splyce, that has to be a pretty disappointing result there, Chance. I mean, they would have expected, you know, Jerd coming back, maybe have a little bit of life. Yes, you're playing the #1 team in the division, but to get 3-0'd in that fashion, I don't think was part of the plan.
I mean, like, yeah, getting 3-0 sucks, and like, it's not going to feel good. But still, like, losing to LG, like, I wouldn't mind at this point. They've looked completely dominant. And Splyce, their goal at this point in time, I think, is just to make playoffs. They had a very rough week one, of course, because they had to play with Felony instead of Jerd. So they just need to get as many wins as they can. Taking the L to Splyce, or to LG, excuse me, isn't a huge deal. And at the very least, they can learn from it, right? They say, okay, now we know what to pick and ban. Now we at least get a bit of information out of it. So long term for Splyce, I don't think this series is going to be a big deal. Of course, short term, it doesn't feel good, but what are you going to do?
And I know it's tough to say because they've played with Jerd for so long, but even a week without him or 10 days without him, it does feel different. It doesn't matter who you talk to. He's not going to fit right back in perfectly. If they had another team to play besides Luminosity, the game probably would have been closer. Say they played Luminosity tomorrow or on day 3 of this week, it might have been a little bit different, but I feel as that piece was still missing. Right. They're still a little bit uncomfortable. I feel like they're going to get better each day they're here.
Well, congratulations to LG, the 3-0 victory.